right, everybody, welcome to the show. So today we're going to be doing a review show, and I'm joined by Adam Dawson from zwiftaholics. How are we, Adam?
Very well. Bittersweet. I think the end of the Swift Racing League season. It's been an amazing journey, but it was always a very busy 24 hours those Swift Racing League days. So in a way, it not a bad thing that it's done and dusted.
Yeah. So I know I caught one of your streams. Did you stream one event and race one? I know you sometimes double up on the racing. I have to assume with Surrey Hills you didn't double up this time.
Only because I couldn't. I was taken away for work, so I we watched the APAC B1 Women's deciding race, which just was this crazy evolving race. It was swings and roundabouts, and then even after the race, the winner got disqualified, so the drama didn't end there. And
Oh.
then I raced in America's East, closing out that league or that division. Got well and truly beaten there, but enjoyed the scenery
Yeah.
nonetheless.
So no playoffs for yourself.
No, no, we might be we'll have a look at the women's B1. That's been a really fascinating division. So have a look at the schedule and if we can get into the playoffs there, we might stream that through Zwiftaholics.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
no
Well,
racing for me.
no worries. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that. So, for those who don't know, Zwiftaholics, check out the YouTube channel. Adam does a lot of sprint videos as well, because that seems to be where you're at, your forte, I would say, Adam, for sure.
Yes, fair to say.
But just to give everyone a bit of an idea of the format, so we're going to have a quick chat first, I think, last night, and the heroics or not, I guess, around Surrey Hills of London. And then I've got a guest on, so we're going to chat to Karsten, who's from Team NL. It's a phenomenal growth that this team have had in the last two seasons. I think you and I are then going to have a bit of a chat about the seasons as a whole, the different courses, how the power-ups are used, anything that we, saw that really caught us out. And I think there's some really obvious things to talk about there. And then finally,
Yeah.
we're really lucky. We've got Eric Schlanger, who's joined me. So we're going to do a bit of an interview with Eric towards the end of the show. But there's some really interesting insights there as well, and some information that I think we'll all find interesting. So I guess let's talk about Surrey and last night. I'll go first if you don't mind. I know you. It's early hours in the morning there, I guess, Adam.
Very early.
Very, very early. So thank you for taking the time. So you wouldn't have seen my video yet, but I did tell you briefly. It was a really interesting course, and I somehow managed to get dropped. In fact, I got dropped four times. But the most brutal was getting dropped on the descents. I got dropped twice going downhill. I did manage to get myself back up to that front group. But I wouldn't consider myself an out and out climber, and that did show. But I did enough to survive and hold on to that front group and finish fifth. But I think it was probably the toughest course that we've had in 3 seasons of ZRL.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to go past it. I mean, I remember a whole lot of lava last season and three times up the volcano was pretty tough, but I definitely found this one was a real slog. I think I got dropped by over a minute just up Fox Hill straight out of the gate, and it was yeah, touch and go from there, just trying to hold on. In the end, it was really more of a group ride with a couple of buddies from Team AHDR and enjoying the scenery, and the time gaps were just enormous. We saw that in APAC and definitely in ours. I think we were 15 minutes down at
Yeah.
the end of it, so nothing like the shorter sprint races. The whole field just stretched way out over the road from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that the minute you hit Fox Hill for that first time, it was immediately strung out. I think I was down in 30th place, so good 20 seconds, 30 seconds down on the lead pack at that point already. So I think certainly, yeah, I agree with you. Volcano was tough, but it was nowhere near the time that we saw on Surrey Hills. And I have to say, in terms of when I did the recons, and I also, Sherpa and Rick also on their recons, I have to say, it was a little bit of a guesswork because we'd all reconned it on
Mm.
group rides, but it of course doesn't replicate, the race conditions. I was reasonably close actually. I think I was 6 minutes out on mine, but I'll take that as a win. I'll take that as a positive. But yeah, it was like an hour and 17 minutes my race. That's a long race at Zwift intensity.
Yeah, those longer ones are really something. I mean, 3R actually ran a series a little while ago, which was great, which intentionally was kind of races of that duration, but they were really, really tough. And I think we're just not used to it. Used to kind of that short, sharp race, maybe 20, 30, 45 minutes. But once you get over the hour mark, and I mean, it took me an hour and a half, I think, to get around the whole thing by the end of it. So that was something different. I enjoyed that in as much as I hate to say it. I did enjoy the change of pace. Looking back, it was a really nice way to end the season and a bit of variety.
Yeah, yeah. What about the power-ups then? Because from a power-up point of view, I think I said in my recon again, I'm going to pray for the feather. And I can tell you, you watch the video back, I got a feather every single time. But I can also tell you, on the second descent, I was wishing I had an anvil to take me down those hills faster. And for me, it reminded me of Beach Island, you know, where we had the steamroller that had such an effect. I can tell you that anvil, when applied correctly, I mean, I saw an 8-second gap open up so quickly going down some of those descents. And I haven't seen any of the CD races yet. I need to watch some of those back, but I wonder whether that also won or lost a race for some individuals.
Yeah, I haven't caught up with the season Ds either. I was wondering about that. I mean, I didn't really race at the pointy end enough to kind of see the power-ups used in anger a great deal, although I did see an anvil played on Leith Hill while we were climbing by another racer, which was, you know, if you weren't already doing enough damage to yourself going up that hill, adding extra weight. It's
well,
just
a funny one actually. She won't thank me for saying, and but Liz in our team, she was in front of me going up Fox Hill, and I think it was Fox Hill, just as we got over the top, and it is in the video, bless her, that she dropped the anvil a little bit too early, where it's like a false flat 1%, and yeah, unfortunately, that just dispositioned her from that front group. So I think that happens to a few people. Particularly if you've got sweaty hands and using the companion app or something like that. I've even had it where sweat's just dripped onto my phone and I've used the power up. That's my excuse anyway. So, but just to say also to the people who are watching in the chat that if you do have any questions or comments, then leave them in the chat, and myself and Adam will try and get to those as well at some point. What I want to do now...
We did have one, actually.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there was, as you mentioned it, someone actually did ask about how much weight the anvil actually adds, and I don't actually know the number itself, but I guess you'd think that the lighter you are, I think it's a fixed number, so the lighter you are, the bigger the kind of percentage difference is for you.
Yeah, well, really interesting. I'm glad, I think it was Daz Carter who's asked that question, that actually, the chat that's coming at the end of this show, myself and Eric have that same discussion. So I'm hoping, because I don't think he has the numbers yet, but I'm hoping that's the sort of some of the next testing that Eric is going to try and figure out. So hopefully we might have some data on that in the future. But yeah, good question. And I don't know if, apart from the guys inside Zwift, and Eric's as close as we're going to get to that, I don't know if we have the answers. But one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to talk to one of the guys from Team NL. Team NL just pushed themselves into the promotion playoff place last night in my particular race. And this is a team that have grown phenomenally in the last 2 seasons. I raced with them for the first time, or against them, should I say, for the first time at the start of season 2. And everywhere I look now, we've got these orange jerseys. So I'm going to cut to this interview that we did with Karsten from Team NL. All right, so I'm with Karsten here from Team NL. Welcome, Karsten.
Hello.
It's good to finally see you and speak to you, because we raced against each other in season 2. I forget which division it was now, but we were a B4 maybe in Maya West. But was it B or B6 even? I think it was.
6, I think, yes.
Yeah, B6. And I remember the first race that we did, which, if I remember, was Richmond.
Yes.
I think that was the first points race we did. And I can remember it really well because we had about 4 riders up there. You guys had about 3 or 4 riders up there. There was BZR also had 4 riders up there. And one of your teammates, I'm not sure if it was you, but one of your teammates went with about 1 kilometre to go. Took a bit of a flyer early. And he took some catching, and this is when I knew that we were in for a big fight with Team NL all season.
Yeah, it was Mark van Dijk. So he performed really well this season as well. But yeah, we weren't on Discord that race yet, so we were just starting, and so we were surprised as well. But it was really exciting.
So
But
that
he,
was
he
just
only
pure
caught them like
instinct.
400 meters before the finish. So
Yeah, I did just about catch him, but yeah, you guys made that race really tough. But I think also what I remember from that race that you guys can climb. I don't know what it is about the Dutch or your team in particular, and we saw it last night in Surrey Hills. And I will say that I'm riding in the Division 1 now with your B2 team, and I think they've reached the playoffs as well, Karsten, if I'm right.
yeah, they reached the playoffs by 1 point yesterday after a massive achievement. Also a bit less drivers. They also really performed very well yesterday, and they took the playoffs by 1 point. So I'm really proud of them.
Yeah, your guys were amazing on those climbs. In fact, they helped me out a little bit because I got dropped on the first climb, and I drifted back to the second group, and that's when I realised there was 3 NL riders in that group, and I thought, you know what, I'm safe. These guys are going to do the work and get us up to the front. The front group was quite small anyway, and they did a great job. But everyone was commenting before the race that this is all about Team NL because we know the Dutch can climb. Why is this? Because your country is so flat.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising. For me myself as well. I really like the bit of the longer climb. So yesterday was, while I'm not in the best of shape, was for me personally was kind of hellish. So I really collapsed after 1 hour, and then it was still a long way to go. But we have some really powerful riders that can really move uphill quite good. We don't have a lot of hills here, but they Zwift a lot, of course. We have some members there which are level 50 already, so they have lots of experience, which is very important in Zwift, of course.
Yeah,
And they're strong. They're strong.
Fantastic. So obviously we met in season 2. So tell us a bit how did Team NL start? Because I raced season 1 with a different team, and I don't remember seeing Team NL till season 2. So, but I'm seeing the teams everywhere now, and the branding, and I know you've got your own TV show, which we'll talk about in a second as well. So how did it all start, Karsten?
Well, personally, I was watching the first season, and I thought, well, that would be great fun, but I was just a little bit too late to get something organized, and then I tried to find a team for the B division for myself to race in season 2, and the response was phenomenal. So we went up to 4 teams then, 2 B teams, 1 C team, and a D team, which was great fun, with 4 teams, and we also made it to the playoffs with the D team last year, and they did really well. Then, of course, after that, we got a lot of interest from other people, and we grew from 4 to 11 teams in season 3.
Wow!
So it was a lot of work. It took me 2 weeks of holiday to arrange everything with the administration, but we had so much fun. It's worth it.
Yeah, I can understand, and I assume that every member is Dutch. Or do you have any non-Dutch members, or are they 100% Dutch?
Well, our native language in the group and everywhere is Dutch. So we have a few Belgian riders, I think 2 or 3. So they are welcome, but we prefer to stay with the Dutch riders.
Yeah, and your kit also. I don't know whether that was luck or whatever, but your kit also is pretty well coloured and distinctive, I'd say.
Yeah, we were very happy to find that kit, and there's some great news coming about the kit a little bit later, but I cannot tell too much about it because our own team doesn't know it yet. But we are making some progress there, so that will be even better, I think, for next season, I hope.
All right, fantastic. So let's talk about season 3 then. So you've had a fair few teams in this season. How have the teams performed?
Well, we did very well. We had a lot of. You grow from 4 to 11 teams. We had a lot of new riders which had no experience in the WTRL, and also, of course, we had some riders which have never raced before. So we try to be there for everybody, from the starter to the really experienced rider. But we made it to the playoffs again with 2 teams, so that's really great. So the B2, as we already discussed a bit, they made it by 1 point, and also our D team is for the 2nd year in a row. They are in the playoffs.
Fantastic stuff. So I guess you guys are hoping for a good team time trial performance, because you and I also have some history in the team time trial from season 2, right? And I know there's a video on YouTube. I will put a link to that video, begrudgingly, in the description below. But for everyone who's watching, as I said, we were in the same division last year, and there was like 1 point between us, I think, going into the final time trial for promotion. And so you guys needed, I think, a team in between us to take the victory. And I think you were hoping that the BZR Lions 8 were going to do that. But we went off really strong. I think we had a 15 seconds lead on you guys at some point.
Yes.
And then the Dutch Lions, I would say, that showed your true heart. And in the end, you beat us by 4 seconds.
Yeah, it was really crazy, that race. I don't have to tell you, because but we went all out, and really, we had to be on oxygen for 30 minutes afterwards, I think, every single rider. Yeah. And our coach was going crazy on the radio, screaming us forward. And we were behind, I think, for the most part of the race. And in the end, we just could accelerate just a little bit more on the last flat part and take it by 4 seconds.
I think literally, yeah. It was absolutely, I think, within the last 500 meters. Certainly, when you get on the Royal Mile of London, we were still in the lead, and then you showed that true heart and took the win in the end. But sadly, no one finished in between us, so you didn't get promotion that season. But I think when WTRL made the adjustments and analysed the powers and the teams, that you got bumped up anyway, which I think was only right, because you guys were super, super strong.
Yeah, we got promoted to the 2nd division, and we had great fun there as well. Again, battling for the podium with the team, but we had a bit of bad luck this season, but we really enjoyed it again.
Yeah, fantastic. I have got to ask you, you guys have shown phenomenal growth with your team, and like I say, the YouTube show that you've got as well, I think, which Evo presents. How have you managed to get such great guests on this show already? I think you've had Charlie on there. Who else have you had on there as well?
Gara.
Yeah, oh, fantastic. How have you managed this? I mean, I've been trying to get these people on the show for weeks.
Well, we have Evo, his motto is dare to ask. And, sometimes it helps to be cheeky. And, he got it arranged somehow. So, we're very proud with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't speak Dutch. As you know, I do work for a Dutch company, but unfortunately, I don't speak much Dutch. But I did watch those shows and listen to those interviews that you did with those guys. So, absolutely fantastic, and it's great to have you on the show. But give us a bit of insight. What happens with Team NL then? How big can you guys go? And are you looking forward to season 4?
Oh yeah, we are looking forward to season 4 very much. I expect us to grow again. I'm not sure by how many teams, but we are looking into cooperate a little bit with the biggest Zwift community in the Netherlands. So I think we could find some more riders there, maybe up to 20 teams. That would be very nice, but if it are 16, I will be happy as well. We have to, it gets very complicated when you grow that fast. One of the goals, the main goals I think for next season, is that we want to have a ladies team. We do not have a separate one here, and I have 2 ladies in the team which are very fanatical. I have to slow them down a bit, because they really are going all in to get this ladies team formed for next year. So I think that will be our main goal, to have that, to be very complete. We are racing on all categories, and we are just missing the ladies team. So that would be very nice.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I wish you the best of luck. We're in a similar position. We also have a couple of ladies in the team, but not quite enough to put a full team together. But I'm also not sure whether they want to race in a ladies-only team. They seem to be, competing over and above in the mixed teams as well. So, it's great. Fantastic. Well, look, I wish you all the best for the future with Team NL. I'd like to say I look forward to racing you against you, and I do, but just not on the hilly courses and not on the team time trials, given the experience so far. Because so far, you guys absolutely destroyed it in the team time trial, and then yesterday we absolutely got destroyed by your B2 team in the hills. So, best of luck, Evo. Thank you very much for chatting to us, and I'm sure I'll see you on the Zwift rows in the future.
Yeah, thank you also for having us.
No, thanks, Evo. All the best. Bye. All right, so really interesting chat there. And if you want to find out a bit more about Team NL and those guys, I will leave a link to their group and their YouTube channel in the link below as well. So I'm just having a look through some of the chat that we can see there. And David has mentioned that he could do with a few more sprint stages. So while he's mentioned that, let's have a chat about the other stages that we've seen this season. And as you're the resident sprinting expert there, Adam, you know, what was the standout stage for you?
I did enjoy the cobbles of the Champs-Élysées, even though I think that was a really interesting one. You kind of think Paris sprinters course, but the way that WTRL set up that race, it definitely wasn't a sprinters race. I got a buzz out of New York. I enjoyed the New York sprint, I would say, and then it was a bit of a battle for survival up the KOM, but I'd kind of done my job by then, so that was nice. I could let others in the team take their role there and just focus on what I was best at.
Yeah, I think. It's interesting you mentioned New York, because I thought New York was really interesting in the fact that it offered something for everybody, didn't it? You got, what was it, 5 laps we did, or 3 laps? Can't remember. Three laps, wasn't it, of the park? So 3 sprint options, and if you could survive the aftermath post sprints, then you sort of got a chance on the climb. And I guess for me, that's what it was about. It was trying to survive the sprints, keep in the front, ready for that climb. Not that I got many points on that either, but we all have our off days. That's what I keep telling myself. But yeah, interesting. The cobbles, around the Champs-Élysées, again, it was as much about the post sprint or even the power up you'd got, coming through that banner as it was contesting that sprint, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing. I mean, we might talk about it more generally at a season level, but the WTRL team's ability to just take a course that we've raced time and time again and just completely change the race and turn it into something different. And, the Paris races, they've normally got that testing effort just to hold onto the group up the rise, but putting the intermediate there, it just completely changed the complexion of the race.
Yeah. I guess the other one, the big standout one that caught a lot of people was Beach Island Loop, right? The first points race of the season, and then I think Eric spotted it. I know Eric spotted it in terms of the steamroller. My recon, I briefly mentioned it, but I had no idea the impact it was going to have on that dirt road leading up to the villas there.
Yeah, that was something else completely. I mean, Beach Island Loop, new roads on Zwift, so that was kind of cool to be racing on the new course. I mean, great race course in and of itself, but then the combination of the intermediate on the top of the climb, where was the dirt plus the impact of the steamroller, I think that blew people's minds. That really got them switched on to, okay, WTRL have really cooked up something special here, and no one who watched our videos or raced in that race will ever look at the steamroller the same way again.
No, absolutely. And for me, that's, I know we spoke about this in previous, but that gamification aspect, for me is really, really cool. That just adds that other level, that other dimension of racing and racing on Zwift. For me, which just makes it really fun. I know the purists out there don't want to see these things, but for me, ultimately, this is a game and it's something I want to enjoy doing on a daily basis. So I really enjoyed the power. I didn't enjoy not getting an anvil. I didn't enjoy it when I didn't get a steamroller. But in general, I enjoy, the idea of these power-ups, I guess. And I guess the other thing is, just briefly, I wanted to mention this and have a chat with you, is when we start to look at this new island that we've got coming, which is as much as it is dirt road as it is road or pavement, whichever way you look at it, whatever term you use, that could make for some really interesting racing in the future, right?
Yeah, actually, so I tuned into the latest episode of the Zwiftcast featuring Eric, who'll be on the show later.
Yeah.
And they were talking about it a bit as well. And there's some really interesting course options there, and mixed terrain. And I mean, we've done a couple of those around Watopia, and there's that debate, is it worth changing bikes when you go into the jungle? But Makuri Islands throws up a whole bunch of new alternatives and new routes and different ways of racing for sure.
Yeah, and I know it does talk about that, and I think it's going to make bike choice very, very interesting as well. But I don't want to skip over the time trials, because also they do play an important role, and I do think it's good that we've reduced the number of time trials that we had in that first season. I can't remember how many we had in season 2 now. And as we just mentioned in that video there, we got done over in the final time trial by Team NL last season. So I can't say I'm sorry to see it reduced, but I do enjoy a time trial. And what I will say, and again, I'm just going to reference another video, but I did this video with Paul Fitzpatrick. The first time trial we did in season 3, we finished 16th. And I hoped that wasn't going to be the indication of the whole season. The final time trial we did, we finished 6th. And we didn't have a DS still, but all we did was follow the science and follow the numbers a little bit more, utilizing the information we had from Paul Fitzpatrick and ZwiftInsider. So if anyone does want to go faster in the time trials, go and check out Paul Fitzpatrick, or the video is also on my YouTube. If you want to learn a bit more about the sprints and understanding, the nuances of being a sprinter, and also the specifics of the course, because each course has a different type of sprint and different launch points for the finish, Adam, right?
Yeah, I found that. I suppose the intermediate sprints, especially, you didn't get the countdown that you used to if you're racing at the end of a Zwift race, and you can see the distance to go. So you needed to be really mindful of what are the landmarks. When you're in a busy group and there's power ups popping off, where am I? How far am I from the finish? Do I follow that move or don't I? And so I really enjoyed that. And I think a lot of people got a lot of value out of that, just sort of knowing, okay, this, this tree, this lake, this banner, whatever it is, that's this far from the finish. I know where I need to be. I know what my team is trying to do. And so that, I think, made a big difference. And we saw some interesting tactics on the team time trials. I think was interesting. I mean, maybe controversial, but I think they're a little bit too similar. Those 3 courses, it was almost 3 of the same race. I don't think there was much difference for us in terms of, compared to the points races where we dissected and we talked and we agonized over what are the tactics, which is the rider mix, what do we do. I'd say the 3 team time trials, it was fairly much the same each week. It was clear, okay, this is our squad and this is our tactics, and away we go.
It's really interesting you made that comment. You've just immediately, I was just thinking, was it season 2 where we did the New York course on a time trial, on those glass roads, which was just brutal with, I think our riders were literally all over the road. There was no keeping together. So yeah, I think time trialing on hilly courses it adds a totally different dimension. And I need time, Adam, to think whether I think that's a nice or good thing or not, because it doesn't feel like a good thing trying to time trial on a hilly course, given the individual pain they've got to suffer just trying to hold on to my teammates. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to give WTRL too many crazy ideas about that. It would not be in my best interests or our team's best interests, I don't think, but it would make for some interesting racing.
Oh, interesting though. You've just led me on to another topic. Before we let you go, because I know you've got to shoot off to work and at some point this morning. But of course, WTRL have announced this sort of individual classic series coming up in July as well. I think it starts the 13th of July. So it's going to be more about the individual, I guess, than well, I don't know. I mean, road racing on the road is all about the team as well, but that could be a really interesting series to fill a gap.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved the Zwift Classics last year. That was sort of my introduction probably to a big Zwift racing event, and I thought they were fantastic. And I think adding that WTRL sort of polish over the top and really bringing it together as a series, I think is really exciting. So yeah, that announcement for me was a really, really great one, and I'm very much looking forward to taking part in that and hopefully doing some broadcasting and commentary and putting a spotlight on some community races.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we look forward to more of your commentary and sprint insights in the future. I'm just looking at some of the comments here, and I can see I'm still taking some stick here from Team NL because they apparently enjoyed New York. Well, you would enjoy New York because you beat us again. So I do like some of this banter with across Zwift and the different teams, particularly from Team NL. But yeah, I think I don't want to remind everyone, but we still managed promotion above you guys in season 2. Not this season, but certainly season 2. Adam, look, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your insights. Anyone who is listening and watching or rewatching this, check out ZwiftAholics. There is a link to the ZwiftAholics in the description as well. And Adam, I will look forward to seeing your commentary. Hopefully we'll see you doing the playoff stuff as well. If not, we're doing some on the classics and season 3, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be in amongst it. It's, I guess the channel has really been all about putting a spotlight on community races, giving people who aren't necessarily in the Premier League a chance to shine and be on TV. And, we've really enjoyed seeing the growth of that, having people jump on the live chat. We've added in, instant replay. I can even do like slow motion replays. We had a live leaderboard showing the points tally during the race this week. So just keep trying to add features and bring different ways of racing on Zwift and some things that people haven't tried before. So keep an eye out for some new race formats as well that we'll be running.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam. Best of luck. Right, guys, we're going to jump over to this interview now that we've done with Eric. I'll see you in a second. All right, so I'm with Eric Schlange here from zwiftInsider, and I have to say, Eric, thank you very much for coming on. You're a bit of an idol of mine, given the fact that I've been utilising your pages and your insights for so long. It's actually great to see you and talk to you in person. So thank you for joining us on the show.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for reading. Like I always tell other Zwifters, you keep reading, I'll keep writing.
Good man. Well, wait, I want to talk to you about racing predominantly, and in fact, we've raced in the same division together a little bit this season, which has been fantastic. But I have to ask you first of all about zwiftInsider. Like I say, there's a font of knowledge for so many riders, including myself. So can you give us a bit of an idea of how that started?
Sure. I discovered Zwift just before they came out of beta, so it was like late October 2015, and started Zwifting, fell in love with it, started racing, and it was only maybe a month and a half later that I started a website called Zwift Blog, zwiftblog.com, because there were so many questions people were asking, and questions I had too about how Zwift worked that weren't answered because Zwift didn't really have like a support knowledge base at the time. There just wasn't much documentation out there. So I thought, oh, I'm figuring out the answers to these too, so why don't I just write some articles and post them, and that'll help everybody. And maybe it'll turn into something. I don't know. I've built websites all my life. I've run a website development company, and I've built sites for like passion projects along the way. So that was right in my wheelhouse to do something like that anyway. So that was December 2015. Zwift Blog launched, and we kind of puttered along for about a year, and I just kept adding to it, and it got popular, and there were a lot of folks using it. So then I approached Zwift about a year later and asked if they would be able to maybe provide some sponsorship money for it on a monthly basis so that I could justify putting real time into it instead of just doing it, in my spare time that I didn't have. And they said yes. They said, yeah, we're willing to give you this, but in exchange we would like you to change the name because Zwift Blog is confusing to people because they think it's run by Zwift. Yeah. And I said, I agree. I'm tired of getting support requests from Zwifters. So they actually suggested the name zwiftInsider, which I loved. I love the double meaning of it.
Yeah.
So we swapped over to that, and that's basically it. It's just grown from there. And it's, sheesh, I think we have 2,600 posts on it at this point. We get a lot of posts from people other than me, which is great. And I still get tons of support requests from people who still think that I'm Zwift. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting name. I think zwiftInsider. And when I first started, I thought you were a sort of a secret employee, leaking these inside stories and these notes, if you like, on the side. But yeah, so it's good to get a bit of background there.
Yeah, I've got a great relationship with Zwift, and they do give me advance notice of some stuff, and so it's kind of like being a Zwift employee, but I'm not. Yeah, it's been good though.
So I mean, you mentioned how many posts are on there. There's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of data in there as well, which is really, really useful. So I've got to ask about the testing, because there's so many. I mean, we raced Surrey Hills last night, for example, and it was great to see some of the debate on bike choices. But ultimately, a lot of people will look at the science and the data that you've put on there. But in those early days, because I think a lot of it is maybe bot driven now, and I think you did mention that. But I guess it was just you doing the riding in the early days, right?
Yeah, I first got the idea to do some tests when there was discussion. This is how far we've come in Zwift. Is when I first started riding, there was debate about whether different wheels and different frames actually had different speeds. Like people didn't know, and it wasn't documented anywhere. And then Titanium Geek did a test in erg mode, I believe,
Yep.
with the disc wheels and showed that there is a difference. And it was like this groundbreaking, wait, what? No way. And I thought, well, why aren't we doing that with all the equipment? I'm assuming it's all somewhat different. So I remember it was Richmond. I was doing Richmond laps in erg mode to test the different pieces of equipment. I did probably 10 different laps, across 2 days, and realized that this was not a sustainable model because they were going to keep adding bikes and frames, and you had all these permutations. And so yeah, I ended up figuring out a way to do it with bots so that it was nice and controlled, and so my legs would survive to actually be able to race for real.
Yeah, I can still see that from your Zwift log though. You're still doing multiple rides a day and riding most days. I mean, I'm not sure how many days off you're having in a year, but I don't think it's many from what I can see.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the multiple rides, it's those Zwift rides where you go out, you warm up, you race, you cool down, and that's 3 rides. But most days I don't do like a morning ride and an afternoon. I'm not that hardcore. That's pretty rare for me. So it's one session a day for me typically, and typically 1 day a week that I don't ride is what it. So there's usually 1 day a week where I just think, you know what, I don't feel like riding today, or I'm too busy today. So,
Yeah,
6 days a week.
What about outdoors then? Do you do much outdoors, or what's the background in terms of cycling or sport for yourself?
Yeah, I do quite a bit outdoors when the weather's good. My background is I rode a lot when I was in high school and really enjoyed mountain biking and road biking. Loved like just wrapping my head around the sport. I had a couple of adult riding buddies who really knew cycling. One guy who he'd been to Ironman Kona several times and was just like a hardcore cyclist. So I learned a lot about cycling as a high schooler and got into it. But then basically after high school, I stopped because I had a family, I had my own business, and I knew that cycling was a time-intensive thing. So I stayed away from it basically for 18 years. And then a couple of local buddies that I worked out with both got into cycling. Both guys who had never gotten into cycling before. They got into road riding, and they're like, Eric, you should get back into it. And I held them off for about a year, and then finally took the plunge. And that would have been December 2014. So after about an 18-year hiatus, I jumped back in, and I jumped back in with both feet for sure. It was like, oh yes, I remember how much I love this. So I was doing like immediately shooting for the 100-mile weeks, getting into shape, dropped 25 pounds in 2 months. Just embraced it all the way, and then discovered Zwift several months later, and that got me in even deeper. In terms of this time of year, probably half my miles are outdoors.
Yeah.
It's been a little weird with COVID and with needing to have so much focus on Zwift because of how busy Zwift has been. I've been on Zwift more during the good weather in the last 2 nice seasons than I have been in years past. But usually more than half my miles are outdoors when the weather's decent. I used to race outdoors. I did for a few seasons, but I don't live near a city center, so any racing that I do outdoors is a minimum of a 2 to 2.5 hour drive just to get there, and then the same back.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't. I mean, I've got a family and I have other hobbies, and I remember one of the last races I rode, one of the last crits that I raced outdoors, I was in the race sitting there, and I remember thinking to myself, is this more fun than racing on Zwift? And I thought, it's not. and that's just me. That's not everybody. But for me, I enjoy racing on Zwift just as much as I do outside, and it's free, and I don't have the risk of having my front wheel taken out by some
Yeah.
15-year-old in the finish, and I don't have to drive for 5 hours to get there. There's just so many benefits to it that I basically just stepped away from it. Someday I might do some more. I like road racing more, like a 90-mile race where I actually get to ride for a while for all the drive time I put in.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot of road races here in NorCal. It's more it's a crit scene.
Yeah.
So you drive for 5 hours to do a 40-minute race, which kind of kills me.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I guess a similar background. I'm a father of 5 and working full time, and but road race for years. But Zwift has just been absolutely ideal to fit around family life, and actually I've been going out, similar to self, I've been going out and doing 3 or 4 hour rides with the group. Now group rides have started in the UK again. And actually, I haven't felt any difference. I've not lost any fitness from only doing hour-long rides indoors and then switching back to 3 or 4 hour rides. So I think that there's lots and lots of benefits there. And I think before Zwift, trying to do an hour on a turbo was a chore. It was really hard work. I guess psychologically more than anything else. So it's certainly changed the way I train and approach exercise in general, and not just cycling for sure. But I think the main reason I wanted to get you on today was to talk about WTRL and the Zwift Racing League. As I said, we've raced in some of the same races this season. I think you race for 2 teams. Is that how pretty much how it works with the dirt team?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work that way for everybody on the dirt team, but it was weird because I raced with the Hellhounds, which are in the division you're in. I raced with them the last 2 seasons. So the first season 1 and 2 I raced with them, but then they kind of disbanded at the end of 2 because of scheduling stuff. So I was put into another one, the Roosters, which is in the EMEA North Division 5. But then the Hellhounds kind of resurrected. They came back together, and the captain of that, Snowy, who I had raced with the first 2 seasons, asked me to join them at least so I could qualify to race in the playoffs in case they needed me, and because they just needed some riders. So I ended up swapping back and forth, which I hadn't done the first 2 seasons. I had just been on I had only ridden for the Hellhounds. And it was really interesting actually experiencing both leagues, because the Roosters were in the wrong division. I'll just say that. WTRL seeded people in divisions who were, I think the teams that were new, they placed them, and I don't know what logic they used to do that, but the logic did not work in the case of the Roosters division, because they won every race. They're not a Division 5B team. They're probably a 2, I would say. They weren't as strong as the Hellhounds, but they're pretty darn strong. So that was a totally different experience racing with them than racing with the Hellhounds, where I was one of the weaker riders on the Hellhounds, and I was just struggling to stay in the front group at all. Whereas with the Roosters, it was more like I was one of the stronger riders, and I could actually make moves and
can compete,
be more really make a difference. So it was fun. It was fun to do both. One more challenging than the other, but one I got more points than the other.
I think with any new league system, getting the seeding and the positioning right is going to be tough. We jumped from Division 6, which is where we were in Season 2, straight to Division 1. We finished 8th in the end, but even the Hellhounds had such a gap, I think, even on Team NL, who finished 2nd. So there's still a bit of disparity, I guess, between right at the top and right at the bottom. But hopefully that will come as we get a more stable number, because I guess at the minute they're still experiencing large influxes each season, I guess.
Yeah, it's a complex problem, and it's not improved by the fact that Zwift really doesn't have a good ranking system. Without that, you can't really look at a team and say, where are these guys at? If all you're looking at is whether they're B's or C's or D's, it's just not granular enough, in my opinion. That said, I think the level of competition in the ZRL was great, and I do think it's kind of been dialed in every season. I feel like it has gotten tighter. The Hellhounds were interesting because in season 2, I mean, it was a really strong team, but the team that won in season 2 was basically a team that should have been racing in the A's.
Yeah.
So it made it look like the Hellhounds were a second place team, whereas in reality they were a super strong team that was just being bested by a team that probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. So you have all those kind of weird situations, and I don't envy WTRL's job in trying to herd those cats and figuring out how to seed those teams. And then you've got a bunch of riders heading outdoors, so now the teams, they lose a bunch of riders, and then you've got new unproven riders. It's a challenge, logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I think nightmare is right. And we had exactly that. We had a Division A team last year that dominated their division, and then the sun came out and they all disappeared on the road, and we ended up filling it with riders who'd just been promoted, who were then, they weren't totally out of the depth, for sure, but it was certainly not dominating like they were before. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm glad we've got a bit of a gap now until next season, and hopefully we can, like I say, I think that the granularity of if that's a word, but the seeding could improve a little bit. Then that, should be a really interesting competitive season for all riders again. But so that said, then what are your thoughts on this year's course and the route selection, the power ups, that sort of thing?
For season 3, you're asking about?
Yeah.
I thought that they definitely stepped it up. I feel like every season they've kind of said, okay, this route wasn't ideal. Let's do this one instead because it takes the strengths from that one, but fixes the weakness. One good example of that would be there was a New York City race in season 2, and I don't remember what the route was, but it was a route that basically dropped all the sprinters at the beginning, and then there was a long race after that had like sprint sections in it and all this, but basically there was nothing for the sprinters. Then in season 3, they went with the NYC KOM after party route, which worked a lot better, where you got to sprint first, and then there was a climb at the end. So everybody got to be
involved.
A part of it. Yeah. So I saw a lot of that. I think the most interesting week was the Beach Island week with the steamroller debacle. I'm proud to say that I called it, that I put in the weekly post on zwiftInsider, I put in there, the steamroller, let's look at what a difference this actually makes, and let's look at the wattage difference. But apparently not a lot of folks read that post, because it was wild just to see the reactions of people in the steamroller. Yeah, I mean, it makes a difference of a couple hundred watts, 150, 200 watts when you're going at race pace on dirt. So that one was interesting. But I actually thought I was just looking today at the schedule of the road races that they did, the points races in season 3, and I think there were 5 points races, and 4 of them I would say were really interesting, the way they played out. The only one that was kind of boring was the Champs, the one in Paris. It's kind of a boring route, but the other 4 were all interesting in their own ways. Even the Surrey Hills terrible experience of yesterday.
Painful experience, I think.
Oh man. But that was interesting in its own way too. It was a totally unique race compared to the other races in the season. So I think it was great. I think it was a great choice, even though it was not a great choice for me personally.
I think we all had personal battles, and what I like, actually, it's a good point that you raised Surrey Hills, because obviously there's myself, Rick, and Sherpa doing these recon videos, and then I read your post a couple of days before as well. And what I really like is the fact that ultimately you said it's going to come down to where you think you're going to, because we all had slightly different views, I think, on bike choice. And then you did your post, and you said ultimately it's about, you know, where you think you're going to need the support or the assistance or whatever it might be, you know. And ultimately that's what I really like about Zwift, is it's not just about the numbers, it's not just about the recon, it's as close, you know, it's very, very close to real riding, you know. And we see this with riders who watch power meters all day long, but when a move goes up the road, they miss it because they're looking at the power numbers and they think, oh, I've got wattage to stay in. And I think Zwift racing is, for me this season, we've seen more of that. If someone's gone up the road, you know, your team has got to react in some cases, and you've got to go with it. You know, so I think there's that, you know, that personal decision making is still playing a big, big part in that racing.
Yeah, it does. And that's one of the things I love about bike racing as a whole. But just that idea that, yeah, there are the, what you might call the objective things, the constants of how light is your bike and how strong are your legs. But then there's that whole subjective, situational, strategic element. And that's where I win races more than with my physical prowess, is, you know, knowing the route, having knowledge of it. Oh, I can push hard on this climb because there's a descent right after it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bike choice is just a small part of it. I mean, let's be real. To me, it's almost a psychological decision more than anything else, of just knowing in your head that you have the best bike for the route. Just helps that way. But it's really, so much more comes down to your ability to react, to put in the digs where you need them. You make up most of the fast bikes, they're within 2 seconds of each other over an hour race. Yeah. So you make up for that really quickly by making a mistake or by making a really good call at the right time.
Yeah.
I had an instance yesterday. I saw your video on getting dropped on the descent.
Yep.
I had an interesting thing happen in my race yesterday on Surrey Hills, where I was the dropper, and I didn't even mean to. I was in a pack of, there was only 5 of us, I think, and I got the anvil. The only time I got the anvil. And I was just sitting in the pack, and I activated the anvil, put in I just super tucked. I wasn't even pedaling. Super tucked, and within 20 seconds, I was 11 seconds ahead of my group.
Wow.
And they were all just sitting in 2. It was weird. It almost felt like a bug. Like, how am I going this fast?
Yeah.
When there's 4 guys who are together behind me super tucking. So I don't know if the anvil's super, super heavy, because we don't actually know how much weight it adds. But yeah, that was a big jump, and that made me think of what happened to you. I wonder if it's something similar. It was just this massive speed increase all of a sudden. Of course, you had a group. That group was chasing a group just ahead of it too, so there were people pushing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. That certainly caught me. I'll be honest. I think I was messing around with my music at the same time. So at first I thought I've just been distracted, but then when I've watched it back, those 3 anvils that get dropped in front of me, plus the fact that they were pushing on to try and catch a couple of riders up, you know, it was just almost a cocktail of disaster. But thankfully, I managed to pull it back.
Although, as soon as you lose any draft on those, when you're going fast and you get gapped enough to where you're not in the draft, it's like a parachute too. I never get dropped on descents. I'm heavy enough. I'm like 83 kilograms, so it's generally not an issue with me, but it happens. It happens with lighter riders for sure. Yeah,
it's the first time it's happened to me, but wait, I can't have you on without asking you about I guess it's a double question, but firstly about Mercury Islands or Umazi, and whether you think, you know, what are they going to be like for racing, and do you think we'll see them in season 4 potentially?
I hope we'll see them in season 4 because I think they'll be interesting for racing. Yeah. Bike choice is going to be really interesting depending on the route. I published a post a few days ago where I listed the 8 routes, and I said, here's what I would recommend just in terms of whether of road, gravel, or mountain bike. I didn't say which road bike you'd pick, but which style of bike. Certain routes, it's really obvious because certain routes are all pavement. Yeah. So you would only do road. There's one route that's basically all dirt. So if you do road, you will lose. But the interesting ones are the ones that are mixed because that the KOM dirt section is the crucial part of the route in a race. It's the climb
Yeah.
and it's dirt. So having the right bike there where the attacks and the effort's going to be the highest is going to be really important. Uh, there's there are a couple routes, maybe just one route, where I basically said use gravel or road. It's up to you, and then you're going to have to realize that you're at a disadvantage here, but you have the advantage here, and you're going to have to ride heads up in that fashion.
Yeah.
Um, there's one route, I think it's Countryside Loop, Countryside Tour, it's called, that I recommended a one-way bike swap, which is something that we've never really done. But the idea is most of the loop is basically the loop is a bunch of pavement and then the dirt KOM up and down and then a short paved descent to the finish. So my recommendation for that was start with the road bike, swap to the gravel bike when you hit the dirt, and then stay on the gravel bike to the finish because you're flying down that pavement. You don't want to have to stop and take 15 seconds to switch bikes.
Yeah.
And it's such a short descent anyway, it wouldn't make much of a difference anyway. So just swapping that one time, I think would be by far the most efficient one. But what's really interesting is I don't think mountain bike is the best choice for any of the routes, which is going to kind of throw people off because I think Zwifters have been trained to think that if it's dirt, ride the mountain bike because that's how it works basically in Watopia. But because the dirt sections are a climb followed by a descent, the climb is steep enough that the gravel bike is actually faster because they're lighter. So there's finally a use for gravel bikes in Zwift. So it would be cool to see a ZRL race where people are on gravel bikes. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I think there's always a lot of chatter on Facebook about it's purist roadies, I guess, and I'm absolutely not a purist. Although I've done a lot of road racing in the past, but gravel biking has grown so much in this last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think it's right that they put in there, and I was saying, I saw comments on the new island about there being the lack of climbs. But as you've said, that the climbs that are there are technical, and you've got to think about these things and a lot more than you have previously. So I'm with you. I think it could make some really interesting racing for sure, and where you've got to use your brain a bit more than just hopefully just the pure strength, which I like for sure. So, well,
yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah, look forward to seeing some racing on there next year as well. Just very quickly, I know I'm keeping you a little bit longer than I said I would, but hoodless racing as well. Now we can remove all these numbers from the screen. We don't get that when we're road racing, of course. So, do you think we're going to see more hoodless racing?
I think so. But that's just based on the fact that I think it's cool, and I hope other Zwifters feel the same way. I don't know. I don't know if Zwift HQ is going to roll them out more. I'm sure that if race organizers wanted to do like a HUDless series, that Zwift would let them. But I'm not seeing much of that at this point.
Yeah.
I think it'd be super cool though, and it might be something where Zwift has to lead the way and do it. Do some Crit City, like a HUDless series. I'm not sure.
Yeah, really interesting. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for all the data and the work over the years that you put into ZwiftInsider. I know I appreciate it, and a lot of the viewers are exactly the same. It's sort of a daily resource for me, particularly with doing the recon rides along with the other two guys as well. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it, and I hope to see you on the roads of Zwift soon.
My pleasure, Simon. Yeah, I'll see you out there. Thanks.
Cheers, Eric. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. I see plenty of chat there as well about the playoffs and the courses. I mean, for me, looking at the courses that we've had, I do agree with, I think someone mentioned about, well, I've seen the purists on about there that it should be a road race, and you've just heard the discussion there we had with Eric. I don't think it has to be all road. I think it will be all road this time. For me, I think it's got to be one of the Yorkshire courses, or I think someone also mentioned Innsbruck. One of those courses, again, where you've got a mix of climbs and sprinter opportunities for the playoffs. And for the team time trial, as long as it's not the greatest London flats, does I'm open to ideas there, I guess. But as you can see, I'm all on my own. We're almost at the end of the show now as well. It's good to see Paul Fitzpatrick has also joined the show, so I really appreciate that. And again, as I've said, if you guys do want to learn a bit more about the science of team time trialing, I cannot recommend to visit Paul's page enough. As I've said, it took us from 16th position on a TT to 6th position in a TT, and that was without a DS. I'm sure if Paul was shouting down my ears or positively coaching us, let me say, down the headphones, I'm sure we perhaps could have done a little bit better than that as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. All I ask, guys, is just keep watching, keep listening, keep tuning in. If you don't mind, also share this video, share the other videos on Facebook, social media. I really appreciate your comments tonight as well. Like I say, we're going to take a little bit of a break from the recons now until probably the classics. I'm probably going to do the recons for the classics. But I have got some more videos coming up. As you've seen today, I dropped the video again where I get dropped on the descent with the anvil. I'm also going to do a series of videos, first of all, on the crits, where instead of riding them defensively and you're looking at just surviving to hold on for the sprint, is taking much more of a proactive, offensive approach to these and trying to reduce the group size down, ready for a mediocre sprinter like me can compete in those. So lots to come. Evo, absolutely would love to come on your show, but despite working for a Dutch company and despite visiting the Netherlands every single month for the last 10 years, my Dutch is still very, very minimal, so I do apologize. And also, I hope to see you guys out on the road soon as well. And I could see one of the viewers, John Poole, we've ridden together out on the road as well. I'm going to be doing a bit more gravel riding this summer as well. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll catch you again very soon. Have a good evening.